Okay, my apologies. I hope everybody's in paying attention to what I got to say because it's some serious stuff today that I want to go over. All right. Just want to make sure that I'm doing this right. Can I get some people send me some chats to let me know that they can see me and that everything is going exactly how it should be going? Okay, somebody said, "What's up, bro?" Cool, that's perfect. So I know that I have people paying attention. If you can hear me well, please let me know. It's a very important stream that I'm doing today. Perfect. So my apologies for getting in a little bit late. Sometimes streaming is an issue. Can see and hear you perfect. Hey, sir. Perfect. So we got people coming in. Let me know who's coming in and where you're at, and if I have people from different areas. All right. I hope you guys are ready for something serious today. I see all my breaking through people coming in. That's great. Loud and clear. Perfect. Thank you, Delon. And anytime, you guys are definitely welcome. Hey, Brad. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Lisa, Kimberly. See you guys. Perfect. Okay, so I can get started. Once again, my apologies. Sometimes when you're dealing with streaming, it poses unforeseen issues. Alex Hampton, that's right. Hey, what's going on, Alex? So, first off, if you don't know who I am, my name is Troy Skinner. I'm a actor, writer, director, producer, acting coach located in Los Angeles, California. I've been in the film industry for the last 20 years and the entertainment industry since I was a kid. Even though I wasn't on television and in big films as a child, I always had a love for entertainment. So no matter what I did in life, I always found myself being pulled into entertainment, whether it was through music, dancing, and then, of course, in my later life here in Los Angeles, acting, directing, writing, producing, and coaching actors, and also stunts. Hey, Hebrew, how you doing? Basically, with everything that's going on with the situation that has gone to the news and media, I was compelled to speak, but I wanted to make sure that I did everything correct in regards to how I presented what I'm going to present to you today. I believe that change happens when people are willing to do whatever it takes to make that change happen. And we've seen a great show of force with people marching, people demonstrating, sharing through social media platforms how they feel, what they feel. My heart goes out to everyone because anytime something like this happens, which was basically psychological trauma to the masses, to see a man die right in front of you, how do we know how to handle that? We don't. So there's not much that I can do for people independently in regards to the marching and stuff like that. Like I that's not how I'm going to help. I'm going to help by continuing to do what I've been already doing in the film industry, which is making sure that the narrative is strong in regards to how the world sees Black Americans and Black people. That's where, to me, it starts. That's where everything begins, in my opinion. And so I put together a presentation that I'm going to share with you guys. And then afterwards, I'm going to go into the steps of how we can change the narrative. Most of my films and everything that I've been doing since I've been in the film industry, even coming from when I was in the music industry, has always been to promote and to show Black people in an uplifting manner and way. Even if the characters are irredeemable, the film itself or the story itself would be that of redemption. If you go to my website, that's what it says. Every film that I've done has been in accordance to that. Okay? Call it an agenda, call it my chief aim, whatever. It has always been to show black people, black Americans in particular, in a specific light, which is uplifting or redemptive themes. No matter what I do, whether it's horror, whether it's romantic comedy, it could be a gang movie. It's always to show the redemption of black people, to show us in a different light than what's always being shown. Okay? So, listen, I'm going to... what I'm about to show you guys is it's going to be very hard-hitting. It's going to be very shocking. I'm going to give you time to step away from the computer if you feel like what I may show you may change your viewpoint of Hollywood, or it may infringe upon your artistic expression of who you are as a person. I would just say the best bet is to just step away. Step away from the computer so you don't know these things. Because once forgive my voice, I'm just a little bit hoarse. Not because I'm sick or anything, but I'm talking all week, and then I did a shoot yesterday, so forgive my voice. Anyway, step away, because what I'm going to show you is going to make you feel a certain way. It's not going to be psychologically trauma-induced stuff, but it's going to be very honest and very pure and very true, and you're going to be upset. But at the same time, there's always hope in knowing that you can take it upon yourself to make the change. Okay? So, changing the narrative. All right? So, once again, I'm giving you a couple of seconds for those who don't want to see what I'm going to show you. And it's nothing nasty or anything like that. It's just the truth of Hollywood and the reason why racism exists in Hollywood, and how, in my opinion, it's almost going to be impossible to remove it from Hollywood, which gives us a different window in which we have to go to make a change, to be able to change the narrative. All right? So, are you ready? All right? Remember, people receive you how you present yourself. All right? If you wear a suit, more than likely people will have a high opinion of you because of how you're dressed in a suit. If you wear a bunch of raggedy clothes and ripped up clothes, people are going to receive you that way. So you show yourself how you wish to be seen, and I think that's where black people or black Americans have made their mistake. And I'm going to go into that, okay? So I'm giving you one more chance because once you know this, you're not going to be able to get it out of your mind. I'm letting you guys know this. And the responsibility starts to lie upon you. And I'm not looking to scare anybody. I just don't want to kill anybody's ideology or their dreams or their thought process of how Hollywood works. You have to know the truth in order to be able to make a difference. And that's why I'm taking you guys this route, because it's the only way I can help you, okay? All right? So, count of 3, 2, 1. All right, listen, down the rabbit hole we go, okay? So first off, the phrase "it's just a movie," okay? You hear people say that all the time. Why are you guys getting so upset? It's just a movie, right? It's never just a movie. A lot of stuff that was made in the history of Hollywood was propaganda, all right? The definition of propaganda. Propaganda is communication that is used primarily to influence an audience and further an agenda, which may not be objective and may be presenting facts selectively to encourage a particular synthesis or perception, or using loaded language to produce an emotional rather than a rational response to the information that is presented. How much does that sound like what we've been going through the past 3 to 4 months? And also in the history of Hollywood. Propaganda is often associated with material prepared by governments, but activist groups, companies, religious organizations, the media, and individuals can also produce propaganda. A wide range of materials and media are used for conveying propaganda messages, which changed as new technologies were invented, including paintings, cartoons, posters, pamphlets, films, radio shows, TV shows, and websites. Film, television, and music are used as propaganda tools to form and shape the thoughts of the masses. The whole left versus right paradigm, blue versus red, Democrat versus Republican, conservative versus liberals, they are all stemming from propaganda. Emotional responses, making you feel that you should go left or right, that you should feel up or down. Film has that power. Media has that power. It's no different than a song. A certain song reminds you of a chapter of your life. Film has that power. So we have to understand propaganda, because when people say it's just a movie, they're totally off the mark. It's never just a movie, okay? It's never just a movie. Movies affect us in ways that sometimes we don't even understand. Moving on. Damage to the culture. Now, this whole presentation I'm giving is specifically based on how we can progress Black Americans in the film industry. But we have to understand the damage that has been done to the Black American public, the culture, and also how we started in film. Lincoln Theodore Monroe Aaron Perry. He had 4 names, 5. He was better known by the stage name Stepin Fetchit. Okay, some of you may have heard it before. I knew this, which is why I went down the road that I've been going down with making films. Stepin Fetchit. He was an American vaudevillian, a comedian, and a film actor of Jamaican and Bahamian descent. He was considered to be the first Black actor to have a successful film career. His persona of Stepin Fetchit was billed as the laziest man in the world. I'll say that again. His persona of Stepin Fetchit was billed as the laziest man in the world. Do you understand what type of damage that does to a community? If they see him, then they relate with all people being that way, because that's how the human mind works. Well, not everybody will, but just the majority of people, okay? Especially if they want to buy into the myth or if they want to buy into the stereotype. Perry was the first Black actor to earn $1 million. He was also the first Black actor to receive featured screen credit in a film. So before him, Black people wouldn't get screen credit. They were just in the movie as bylines or sidelines or, extras pretty much, even if they had dialogue. I'm gonna get back to that $1 million in a second. Black Americans began to see his Stepin Fetchit persona as an embarrassing and harmful anarchism, echoing negative stereotypes. So the key word in this sentence is Black Americans began. Why didn't they see that in the beginning? And I can tell you why. It's no different than what we go through today with everybody. Oh, they came up. They came up. We got to show love. Somebody came up. They did their thing. You can't knock the hustle. All those phrases that people be saying. Just because somebody got into a position where they can get $1 million, they're not realizing the damage that has already been done. So they began to see Stepin Fetchit persona as an embarrassing and harmful anarchism. That's too late. If you begin to see, then that means you missed it when it first happened and how dangerous it was. I get it all the time, especially when I'm on the Black Facebook pages where the Black groups, and I'm saying, yo, we need to pay attention to this. This is not good. And everybody, oh, you just hating, oh, this, you're over the top with it, you're exaggerating. And it's like, no, because if you let a leak start and you don't do anything about that leak, eventually the pipe bursts. And that's what's going on right now. I'm going to show you the direct link of how racism has festered like a boil in this country based on how media has done its damage and how film and Hollywood has done its damage. Okay? All right. Let's move on. Oh, $1 million. So he was the first actor to receive $1 million. He died penniless. He died in an old folks' home penniless. So he sold himself out, but at the end ended up with nothing. Okay? All right. This was him. This was Steppin' and Fetchit. These were the characters that he played. Okay? Oh, boy, I don't know, boy. I can't tell nothing. You know, Oz doesn't know nothing, sir. Oz not smart, sir. Oz not smart. You see? I don't know which way we should go. This here, you've seen this before, this type of character. Look at this. This is horrible. If we saw this today, we would, people would be like, well, he getting paid. As long as he getting paid, that doesn't matter. He getting paid. It's like, what? Something like this is streamed all over the world. This is what other cultures see and believe. They believe this is how we are until they come to America and they go, oh, you're not like what I saw in the movie or on television. And I know this for a fact because I've been out of the country and I've seen how people respond to me depending on their level of knowledge and their astuteness if they know other stories and if they know black people from America. But this is what he said. He said, it was not Martin Luther King who emancipated the modern Negro, but Steppin' Fetchit. It was Step who elevated the Negro to the dignity of a Hollywood star. I made the Negro a first-class citizen all over the world. Doing these type of characters? Wow. And then he goes, in an interview in Hollywood, I represent the Negro whom white people despise. The Negro who is supposed to be stupid, but I put so much innocence and cleanliness in my roles, I am actually making the Negro white. Okay, let's move on. I don't want to talk too much more about that. You can look him up yourself. This is a biography here of him. I knew about it for a long time. You had guys like him. You had a couple other actors that were out that, did what they could to get in and get what they could get. Didn't matter to them. Didn't care about the culture. But this is what they did. Okay? This is what they did. Hollywood actually honors him now, believe it or not. What does that say? All right, let's move on. So during the time that he was out, we had what was called the Jim Crow and blackface phase. All right. So these were some of the posters that would be floated around with people, postcards and posters and stuff. Around blacks, never relax. And you got a really dark black man with big lips and a knife. So this is kind of where it started. This is where they had this fear of black men, particularly, and black people. They thought black women was picking and eating the watermelon. I was so happy. This was their thought process of the whole myth of watermelon started coming in. This was all media that did this. You have to understand the power of media. You want to make a difference? I'm going to show you by the end of this presentation how to make a difference. The Dangerous Black Man by Irvin Jones. This was actually a play. This was actually vaudeville and some of the things that these guys did, and they would dress up in blackface. Okay, so Jim Crow, immediately after Emancipation Proclamation, whites in America were taught to fear and mock black people as a form of control and superiority. Dehumanization was in full effect and still goes on today. So now you're starting to correlate the two. If I don't see you as a human, then I can treat you any kind of way I desire, because that's how it was in slavery. See, the problem with people saying, well, slavery was all around the world, that may be true. Some cultures had indentured slavery. Some cultures were slaves where they had no choice. And then you had chattel slavery in America, which was, you're an animal to me. So if you're an animal, then you're not a human. So that's what dehumanization means. I am taking away the equality of myself seeing you as me. You see? If I don't see you like me, then I can treat you any kind of way that I want. I can put a knee on you knowing that I'm going to kill you because I don't care about who you are. I don't see you as my equal. You see? So this was right after the Emancipation Proclamation. These things started happening. It was the programming. Okay? All right, let's move on. Jim Crow and blackface. Propaganda, again, that word is destructive and must be protested and not taken lightly. Joseph Goebbels understood the power of it and used it effectively in Nazi Germany to form negative thoughts and to turn the country against the Jewish people. Even used in jest, it is a recipe for danger. So, what was going on in World War II with the Jews and how Hitler came and rose into power? He used the Jewish people as scapegoats. And the country joined right on in because pictures like this were out. Look at this. They considered Jewish people to be rats. And so Joseph Goebbels, he knew even doing this, and he did films, he did all kinds of stuff to show Jewish people in such a horrible light. And people bought into it because they were already upset because of the previous war, and they blamed the Jewish people for everything. See, a lot of times black people get blamed for a lot of stuff in this country. Oh, they're the number ones with COVID. I mean, just, you have to pay attention to how the media is manipulated. But this is what was going on, minstrel shows, okay? And these white guys would go around and dress up in blackface, okay? Like the perception of black people funds famous fellows. And they made a living appropriating what it was to be black, pretty much. They made a living dressing up in blackface. Okay, look at this. All coons look alike to me. Wow. So remember that whole thing where all black people look alike? Look, do you see where all this stuff is coming from? These are actual posters and things that people kept as keepsakes that lasted through time. Okay, Jim Crow 10 pins. He's barefoot, look like something from out of Huckleberry Finn. Okay. Do you understand? I'm hoping you guys see it. All right, let's go a little deeper. We're gonna go deeper now. Remember, this is part of the reason why I told some of you probably need to step away, because some of these things you're gonna learn, you're not gonna like. Okay? I know all of this stuff. I've always known it, but I've always done what I needed to do to make a difference on my end. Okay? Integrity was number one. Birth of a Nation, and I'm not talking about the Nate Parker one, which he should have never renamed his movie that and say, oh, I'm taking it to get rid of this name of it. No, we need to remember these movies. We need to know that this stuff existed. Stop changing history. Stop it. Stop revising history. We need to know these things so it doesn't happen again. Okay? Birth of a Nation, D.W. Griffith. He was the son of Jacob Griffith, a former Confederate colonel, not a Confederate soldier. A Confederate colonel was his father. David Warwick Griffith, his film, The Birth of a Nation, 1915, broke box office records, but also attracted much controversy as it is depicted black Americans in a negative light and glorified the Ku Klux Klan together with Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, and Douglas Fairbanks. He founded United Artists. So one of the biggest film studios that ever existed this man was one of the men that created it. And he was obvious. Listen, if you've ever seen Birth of a Nation, which if you can make it through the 3 hours, which you should see it, and mind you, I think it was Theodore Roosevelt, Wilson, what was it? I can't remember who it was. One of the presidents at that time, Woodrow Wilson it might have been, invited him to come and play the movie at the White House. Shook his hand and said, great job. This goes deep. There's layers to it. This man was one of the people who created United Artists. Not only that, this enabled him to control their own interests, which is great for actors, rather than depending on commercial studios. That's awesome. But notice too, Griffith was also a founding member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. This man was one of the founding members of the Oscars. So when you guys are constantly saying, man, Oscars so white, they did us dirty this year, they didn't give us anything. Well, why should they? One of the founding members was somebody who was a racist through and through. He didn't believe in black people receiving equal, rights. And you have to see the movie. Watch the movie so that you understand what he did with that one movie. Okay? But this is the man that created the Oscar, helped create the Oscars, and one of the biggest film companies that ever existed, United Artists. Okay? No disrespect to Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, and Douglas Fairbanks, and they had their own issues, but I don't think racism was one of them, unless there's things that I don't know yet. Okay? So, let's go deeper. Veneration, which basically means to worship or to lift up of a racist. He was a racist. There's no way around it. To be able to make that movie, Birth of a Nation, you had to have been a racist, because when you make something, you have to believe in it in order for it to be what it becomes. That's the way it works. If you don't believe in it, yeah, maybe you can do it for money, but, you know, how does that work? This man put his own money into that movie and he believed in it. Okay? A lot of stars were in that movie too at that time. Okay? Why would Hollywood remake the Babylonian set from the film Intolerance? Intolerance was one of the movies that D.W. Griffith did. Okay? Intolerance. To make the main architecture of Hollywood and Highland. This was from his movie Intolerance. This is Hollywood and Highland. This was the set of his movie. It was like a movie with 3 movies in it, 3 different stories. And this was about the fall of Babylon. This was in his movie. This is Hollywood and Highland. The epicenter of Hollywood. Okay? Let me go to the comments real quick to make sure people are not in there. They do it all the time. Yeah, ready. Okay. All right. So, I'm seeing there's something's happening with the stream. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I'm just making sure you guys were able to see me. All right, because it was just saying that it's doing something. All right, so okay, moving on. That veneration of a racist. So we can pretty much see how Hollywood is working. We can't see your screen, but we can see you. Oh, okay. Oh, really? Interesting. Oh, that's not good. Okay, hold on a second. Am I seeing the pictures? Oh, geez. Okay, all right, I'm seeing. Okay, give me a second, guys. Let me find out what's going on. You can see me, but you can't see the screen. It's important that you see these these pictures. We can see you, just not the screen. If you have pictures you want to share. Yes, I do. And I don't know why it's not showing. It should be showing. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me find out what's happening here, because it's important that you see these pictures. All right. Does that help? Can you see the screen, guys? Can anybody see the screen? Thank you, whoever said that. My complexion is fire. That's awesome. Who told you I was 50? That's a lie. Don't you know everybody in Hollywood drinks baby blood? Okay. Can you guys see the screen now? No? Oh, don't know why. How about now? There we go. Okay, you should be able to see the screen now. Let's go back. Let's go back. I want you guys to catch this. Tell me if you can see the screen now. No? How about now? Can anybody? 0, still just me. Interesting. Oh, that sucks. Okay, perfect. Good. Okay. All right, so let me go back so you guys can see. My apologies. All right, so just to review, this is Steppin' and Fetch It. Okay? This is Steppin' and Fetch It. This is when I was talking about the damage to the culture. Okay? This. Can you imagine shooting with someone like me and say, this is the headshot that I wanted you to take? Imagine if any of you casting directors or producers out there or directors, imagine if somebody sent a headshot like this in, how you would respond. And listen, I'm not laughing at the man. I'm laughing at the fact that he made the choice to sell himself out to be able to do this. So now black people are seen a certain way because of this. Do you understand? Okay, so again, sorry, I didn't know you guys couldn't see this. All right. This was Steppin' and Fetch It. These are the things he said. These are actual articles. He looks like a certain rapper who I'm not going to name, but it's funny how Hollywood tends to use the same type of people. This was some of the movies he was in. Steppin' and Fetch It. Do your research. Look this stuff up. Look at this guy. Imagine that. Look at this. I mean, it's horrible. This is horrible. Okay? All right, and the next one. So I mentioned to you guys about blackface, Jim Crow and blackface. Okay? And look at this picture here. This is how they got to a point where they were afraid of us. Specifically black men. Look at that. I'd be afraid of that if I saw that. These are the pictures they were putting up. The Dangerous Black Man by Irving Jones. This is an actual show that he had did. And then this is how they saw black women picking innies in the hair and eating watermelon, puckering their lips with no eyes, rolled up in their head, their watermelon. If this is horrible, and look, this was Minneapolis, Minnesota. Look at that. Wow, I'm just now seeing this. And in Berkeley, California. Okay? Wonder if those companies, I think they probably still exist. All right? And this is what I was telling you about the Jim Crow and the blackface. Okay? This is Jim Crow and blackface. These guys were going around appropriating the culture, putting on the black makeup with the red lips. Okay? Singing minstrel shows. These were called minstrel shows. All right? My mom made sure I knew about all of this stuff. So shout out to Beverly Skinner. All coons look alike to me. Wow. A darkly misunderstanding. So that phrase of, all black people look alike to me. Okay, this was instilled in the culture. This was instilled in the culture, man. Okay? Jim Crow 10 pins. Look at this. God, barefoot. It looked like something from Huckleberry and Finn. And then this was I was telling you about the Jewish posters. Look at this one. How horrible is this? This is horrible. You have to feel for everybody that's been through stuff. Like the Japanese lost their homes in America during World War II. They put them in concentration camps. So us as black people, we've been dealing with this since slavery. Right after slavery, Emancipation Proclamation, we go into Jim Crow, and this is what they were doing to instill the fear or the mockery in regards to people of black people. Okay? So again, I was telling you about D.W. Griffith, Birth of a Nation. This man here, his father was a Confederate colonel. So he was very stiff in his viewpoints about slavery and stuff like that. So D.W. Griffith grew up around that. And he created that movie, Birth of a Nation. If you haven't seen it, please, I implore you, if you can sit through it, it's a tough sit through. It really is. But you have to sit through it to understand the damage that was done. And it was through media. Okay? It's through the content. All right? So, I caught you guys up to veneration of a racist. So we know he was a racist. So that was obvious. Okay? There's no denying that he was a racist. All right? So this was in one of his movies called Intolerance. Hollywood venerates him. They uplift him. They worship him. It's like giving a pound or a dap in our culture. And this is Hollywood in Highland. Do the research. Look it up. This is wild. Let's move on. Okay, so we could sit and talk about the problem forever, but if you don't make a difference, okay, if you don't make a difference, and if you don't analyze how things were compared to how things are and how we got to this point, it stays the same. It doesn't do anything, It doesn't do anything if you don't pay attention to how we got here. So it was important for you to know where we come from, to know some of the things of how we got here. But then we can say, okay, modern times, well, no, I've seen movies and I've seen stuff happening and there's been changes. Black people have been making changes. And I always believe that the black community let their guard down because they got complacent and comfortable. Other cultures that have been through traumatic experiences never let you forget. Jewish people never let you forget the Holocaust. They never let you, do stuff that is anti-Semitic. They never let you do it because they understand how it can happen again. That's why they say never again. You see? Okay? So we have to understand how we got here. Okay? What happened? Because there was a point in the late 80s, the entire 90s, and the early 2000s, there was an abundance of great black cinema. What has happened since? Now, I didn't put this together. This was something that I had found online preparing this presentation. And this was films and television. Look at all these movies, the different narratives, the different stories that we had. Okay? If you look at the stories now, you'll see that there's a similar thread running through all of them. And that there's no real, people always say, oh, black people are not a monolith. You're right, we're not. But at the same time, we have to be mindful that certain stories are over repeating over and over and over again. And because Hollywood feels like, all right, well, they're going to eat it up. Let's just keep making that. Okay? No difference in the business model of making sequels. No difference. Okay? So let's get deeper into what happened. Okay? So we can know why we're where we're at now. Let's find out what happened. Okay? All right. So these are a lot of the movies of that time. Most of these films were made independently with smaller film companies like New Line, but they were distributed through a major studio. Okay, so New Line was the independent, smaller studio, usually a sister company of one of the bigger ones. And they would greenlight these films. They would put in $2, $3, $4, $5 million and have huge returns. Okay. They were usually made on very small budgets and had low count on their theater release. Okay. Low count. That means basically the average big budget film that comes out has a starting sometimes 25 to 3,000 theaters, maybe even more. 3,500 theaters, some of them outrageous numbers. You can go anywhere in the country and possibly the world and find those big budget movies. independent black films, very small releases, not too much money put into P&A, which is, promotion and advertising. The marketing was maybe a couple of bus signs or, grassroots, which was they would go into the community and maybe put up a billboard. That billboard you would not see in a white conservative community, but maybe they would have a trailer in front of another movie if it was a comedy, and maybe that comedian was in something similar to that's on television and white people knew that black actor, they'd throw that trailer on. But a lot of the grassroots stuff was always in the neighborhoods through restaurants and flyers and stuff like that. But you wouldn't see too many commercials, national commercials on these black films. So a lot of times films would slip under the radar, or, which was one of the things that made a lot of these films hits, word of mouth. And also music at that time, because we had a very big boom in the late 80s and early 90s of black music, R&B and hip hop. And so they couldn't deny the money that was made by those brands of music. So it made a lot of sense, but never, were the films really released big. Again, they were usually made on very small budgets and had low count on their theater release, but made a great profit. So, for example, Set It Off, it made $45 million worldwide against a $9 million budget. So it made its money. And I can guarantee you the whole budget wasn't $9 million. It might have been maybe $5 and $4 million P&A, which comes up to $9 million. Okay, you got to understand the numbers on that. All right? So look at all these movies. Look at this. Tell me every one of these movies isn't a different demographic or a different narrative of the black community experience. You got people getting married. You got women waiting to exhale. You got families up here. You got the Wood people getting, married and talking about getting married. He got game. Father comes out of prison, wants to make his son's life different. You got the crazy black chick. You got the one that's figuring it all out. You got all these different types of movies. And this is just some of them. You got the love stories. You got the party movies. Look at this. That's right. Yeah, that's crazy, Brad. I agree. This is why Reggie Hudlin does not have his hand put at the TCL. Yeah, and he made a lot of these movies up here. All right, let's move on. And so television now. Television, okay? So you had stuff like Moesha, a father. Rock, a father. Different World. There was a dad in it who was Bill Cosby, obviously. But she went off to school. But you had, Glenn, who was, one of the upstanding fathers. One of the guys that was, helping the people at the restaurant, even though it was a comedy. Okay, look at this. Up here, you had fathers. You had fathers. You had Family Matters, a father. Okay? That's So Raven. You had, surrogate dad, but, he was somebody who was wise. The Parkers, you had a father. Okay? And he was like a teacher, Mr. Ogilvy, but he was like, a teacher. Father, of course, Cosby Show. Even the Wayans brothers, they had a dad. House of Pain, okay? Chris Rock Show. Fresh Prince, right? He was his uncle, Uncle Phil. Wife and Kids, okay? One-on-One, Single Dad, right? All these movies, the twins, they had a dad. So we had a lot of different films and a lot of different TV shows in the 90s. What happened? Okay, let's get to that. All right. Many of the shows were featured on startup broadcast stations to build up the network and eventually were canceled after 5 seasons and put in syndication for rerun fees. Once the network built strong legs and a strong standing, episodics and sitcoms featuring the black families were snuffed out. The main 4 involved were the WB, CW, Fox, and UPN, which folded in 2006. So all of those stations, and a lot of you already know this, started out with black entertainment and black shows. Okay? They started out with black entertainment and black shows. And eventually they ended up snuffing those shows out. What people don't know a lot of times is that a lot of these shows, they would force them to last 5 seasons because that was the minimum requirement for a show to go into syndication and rerun on all these off stations and stuff like if it's not prime time, then it'd be playing. But once cable came in, there were shows on cable shows and cable networks that were playing consistently all the time because you had 5 seasons. You had enough material to make it last. But what happened? What happened to all of that? I mean, look at this. Look at all these people who were doing different stories of black people, different narratives of black people. What happened? If these shows, if these networks, look at these, some of these networks are still around, the WB, the CW, and Fox, and it's the total antithesis. It's the total opposite. It's the total contradicting aspect of what black families were. Maybe it is Black Lightning. There's American, all American, there's certain shows, but not like this, not like this. What happened, man? And so sometimes we would question ourselves that, and, we would question and wonder, like, yeah, what happened? What happened? What happened? But, it is what it is at this point. We got to figure out what to do to make a difference, right? It's the only way. Okay? So let's move on. All right? Okay, so now we're here today. We're here today. We got, Floyd being killed, a lot of people being killed in their sleep, a lot of things happening. And you have other people who, you're going to have people who feel like it's over the top and why are you complaining? There's nothing wrong with the country, right? Okay, so I'm going to help you guys understand what happened, okay? So now that it's like that was ended. We can see that was ended. What happened, okay? When a society changes, it changes due to the philosophy. But again, propaganda, remember propaganda is something that it permeates media. It permeates how we think, how we sleep, the images we have in our minds, right? So if all you're doing is watching TV all day, if all you're doing is watching movies and listening to music, that becomes your thought process. Okay? And remember what propaganda said. It said, emotional. We get caught up emotional, and that it's agendas that's pushed through it. So what I want you to see is what you will receive. Okay? So let's look at the state of film today. Nihilism, look it up. It's a word. You need to know the definition of it. You need to know how serious this is. Nihilism is the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. Again, the rejection of all religious and moral principles. So whether you're atheist or not, you still have a set of moral principles. It is the rejection of that as well, in the belief that life is meaningless. Oh, it's whatever. Life is whatever. I'm just, I'm taking it as it comes. It's whatever. I wake up every day. I do what I have to do. Crowleyism. Some of you may know this. It's based on Aleister Crowley, a form of practice of one who believes in the thoughts, teachings, and belief system of the occultist, magician, and Satanist Aleister Crowley, who created the religion of dilemma and coined the phrase, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Do what thy wilt shall be the whole of the law. Nihilism and Crowleyism has found its way into films and media. This in turn has pushed people into using and creating negative imagery of Black Americans, which has shaped the minds of the masses and brought us inexorably here. Okay? So we are here because of these two things that are happening in film and in music, of course, which is really all about Crowleyism. Do what thou wilt. You listen to the words of music today. You see some of these movies, these TV shows, and what's really happening. It's crazy. It's crazy to see. All right, let's move on. So we're caught up. This is where we're at today. Okay. Now, some of you may like some of these films. I'm not judging the film as much as I'm judging the people who made these films. Okay? Because none of these films were made by accident, and none of these stories were written by accident. Okay? The black community is under attack, and it's not just being able to walk down the street in peace by police, but there's a subliminal, unconscious thing that's happening right now. Okay? With a lot of these film projects, all right? Many films are interjected with agendas, personal and purposeful, and themes that are meant to psychologically traumatize black people and interject subliminal messages that cause division, strife, falsehoods, separation of the black man and woman, and turmoil within the community. Historical revisionism and false narratives are the new things creeping into film now. So if you haven't seen any of these films, you don't understand what's really happening, because this is what's getting green light. This is what's getting greenlit. This is what's getting made. These are the films that people are making. Okay? They are making these films. And these films, when I saw Precious, you know, I love movies. And I've seen some movies that people will be like, you watch that? And I'm like, yeah. This movie here, when I left the theater, gave me the most disgusting feeling I ever had in my life. I felt sick. I felt my skin crawl. I felt so bad. I felt like the day was over and that it was the end of time. And I'll tell you why. We go back to what I said. You have to understand what's going on. Nihilism, the rejection of all religious and moral principles, and the belief that life is meaningless. When you look at Precious, at the end of the movie, she walks out of that office. She's dying of AIDS. Her child that just was about to be born has HIV. And she has no reconciliation with her mother. She has no job. She has no life. There is nothing. She just walks down the empty streets of the bustling streets of big New York City with no hope. With no hope. And they lobbied and pushed this thing to get Oscar attention. This movie right here. And mind you, it was made out of the studio system, but once they pushed it, Harvey Weinstein film, mind you, it gained notoriety around the world. Around the world. So these were the images that people around the world were seeing. This one here, just recently, and I love Octavia Spencer. Trust me, I love her. But this movie right here, how they portrayed black men in this. They portrayed colorism, light skin versus dark skin. Okay? How they changed a lot of the history in this and made what they wanted to make with this movie. Madam C.J. Walker, the first female millionaire, black woman. We ain't going to even get into this one. The revisionism, big or long, let's not even get started. The damage. And people go and watch these movies and they co-sign these movies. They co-sign them. Oh, child, it was good. I saw it. Because they don't understand. They're programmed. They're programmed into suffering. They're programmed into black people not overcoming. They're programmed into black people getting the short hand of the stick. So if you see enough of this stuff, then you feel like we ain't got no hope. You watch enough of these movies, you'll see that you ain't got no hope. This one here, that kid was cussing up a storm. So people watch it, they think it's funny, and then guess what? They allow their kids to be like this. You've seen stuff on World Star, giving babies cigarettes and making them drink and smoke weed, and they cussing their mama out. This here, Coffee and Cream. This movie. And I love Taraji, but this was a travesty, this movie. Disgusting. Queen and Slim. A lot of people love this movie. I had my reasons for not wanting to support it. But more importantly, when I finally did see it, if you haven't seen this film, close your ears now so I can talk about the ending. But they get killed. And they get killed horrifically. He is carrying her, which is an analogy of the black man carrying a weapon, which is the black woman being a weapon. Okay? You got to understand how they do this stuff. That's all agenda. It is all teaching you how to think. Okay? And a lot of this movie didn't make any sense. And people, when you look at the comments, because I pay attention to comments a lot. When you look at the comments, people were saying, ooh, child, I left that movie. It made me feel some kind of way. It's like, why can't we just get over? Like, why couldn't they get on the plane and get away? They didn't do anything wrong. Well, you see the programming? They weren't resisting and they got shot down. Like, it was crazy. I just couldn't believe that the movie was even made. I'm not going to get into the people that made it and how they went about doing it, but for this, when people say, oh, I love Queen and Slim, I'm like, do you understand the damage that movie did? And this one here. Now, the reason why I put this up is because of the marketing. He's running. But in the movie, he never ran. He never ran to escape. There wasn't a movie he was running to get away. He was doing everything in his power to get away, but, he never really got away. At least if you running, like Harriet should have been running. Because she, she was running. She should have been, no, they put a gun in her hand, okay? And they said they want to make this movie like a superhero. Like she's a superhero. She's a black superhero. I'm like, why not all these other movies with black superheroes, why not make them? Look what happened with Black Panther. You make a movie like that, and it's a success. But he was a black superhero. But he's running in it. And that movie, of course, they pushed the envelope. He finally ends up at home. The last shot was very distressing. Very distressing. It was like, okay, I'm home, and now what? It wasn't rejoiceful at all. It was very odd. It was a very odd ending. So these movies push the propaganda and they push the agenda. And of course, you want to support black films, you want to support black filmmakers, but you have to make sure you make a stand. And you have to be okay with speaking out against this stuff. Okay? Because this here was, big along. I'm going to get that bitch, Harriet Tubman. And this character didn't even exist. She was written into the movie. She didn't even exist. So how can you take a historical character like Harriet Tubman and just start taking the story anywhere you want it? Because you feel like, oh, well, people, you got to take chances and you take liberties with narratives. No. Her story in itself, if you tell it as it was so remarkable. And obviously there's so many people that never heard of her. You gotta understand who these movies are made for. It's not made for black people, that's for sure. Okay, let's move on. All right, so let's get back to rounding out how I started this program off, okay? Mr. D.W. Griffith. This was one of his films. D.W. Griffith, this film was based on a book which was inspired by theosophy beliefs established by Madame Blavatsky, a Satanist and major influence of Aleister Crowley. Wow, how all this comes full circle. So, to be able to be at that point where he was a revered and well-known person, but in his personal life, he let his stuff seep into the film. You're talking about a man who pretty much was a Satanist and a slave monk. He believed in slavery. He believed in it. He was a racist. And this was his movie that he made, Sorrows of Satan. And it's basically about a man that makes a deal with the devil. And this is who Hollywood venerates. Hollywood venerates this man. See, I always knew about Birth of a Nation, so that in itself turned me off about him. But, people always say, oh, man, he created the close-up, he did this, he did that. Yeah, but what about all the damage he did to black people? And unless you've seen the movie, unless you've seen that movie, you will never know how serious that is. You will never know the seriousness of what that movie does to people. Because it's a movie that even Ku Klux Klan members pass around to each other now. The way black people are represented in that as deviants, black men are like deviants and rapists and backbiting and thieves and liars. Every bad thing you could think about a black man or a black woman was in that movie. And then you see, because it's like, all right, all the white people were downtrodden, so they had to fight back. And so here came, the Ku Klux Klan, and they were able to beat back those black people. And man, 3 hours, bro. 3 hours of that. 3 hours. But that is the man that Hollywood venerates. So what does that mean? Choice, why are you showing me this? What does this mean? Why are you showing me this? Well, I'm showing you this so you can see how deeply embedded racism is in Hollywood. And when everyone's asking for Hollywood to make a change, it's not the people who are current, it's the people who have power who won't let it move because they believe in someone like D.W. Griffith. They agree with him. Okay? Because the foundation of it is built on racism. That's why that TV show Hollywood, as groundbreaking as it is, there's the last episode, people were like, yeah, that was too much. Because that, in their mind, liberalistically thinking, is like, okay, this would be great if this had happened. But it wasn't going to. That would have never happened. So it kind of takes you out of, it's kind of like, you get all the way to the 5-yard, and you drop the ball because it's just like, show it as it is. Okay? All right, so I'm sorry if I dashed some of you people's dreams or if anybody feels a certain way. I know some of you are angry. I know some of you are hurt. I know some of you are planning on doing your research now. But let's move on. Let's go to how do we change the narrative? Because I believe that once you open something up to someone, you have to help give them a way to rectify it or to make a change, a real change. I've had that ideology of uplifting the black community since I was a kid. That has never changed. Whether my mom introduced that to me or I just didn't like the conditions I lived in, and I realized that the only way was to not be how your conditions are. So how I always say, it is not your circumstances that define you. You define your circumstances. I always knew that getting up, yelling, and screaming in people's faces, although it can make a change, it's just a temporary change. That's what we saw with the 90s. It was like, okay, the hip hop explosion and black people became popular. And we had all different types of music and all different types of film. But to say we want to change the narrative, listen, all of my films, if you watch any of my films, they all have a redemptive theme. If you go to my main website, you see that is my chief aim. That is what the business is about. Okay? That is my objective. Okay? To interject redemptive themes into the material that I create. So all my films, Black Lightning, Brotherly Love, all the films that I've done, even the ones that I direct, the only reason why I'll direct something like I just directed Right Where You Need to Be is because it had a happy ending and she overcomes her circumstances. I would not direct it if it ended on a sour note. Okay? All right. So here. Now this is where we finish the program on what we're about to do a Q&A and discuss if you have things you want to ask. How do we change the narrative? Number one, stop selling out. Bottom line, just stop it. Just stop selling out. There are people who I call cultural sellouts. Okay? And a cultural sellout is someone who, in their mind, they feel like, you know what? I got mine, you get yours. And the reason why they're able to say that is because if they bring you into the fold and you have something as far as your ideology that is separate from theirs, it's not going to work because now you're going to get in the way of what they're looking to do, which is sell out. And you're holding them to a higher standard. Okay. Or how about you're being too sensitive? Oh, that's not how Hollywood is. Someone could look at this whole presentation that I did and be like, oh, Choice, you're being too sensitive. You're being way too sensitive. That's not Hollywood at all. You're making stuff up. You're being way too sensitive. That ain't Hollywood. Okay? That person was walking down the runway wearing blackface, but it was more an illusion. It was more of a celebratory thing of we've overcome blackface. Okay? Or how about yeah, let me change the name of my movie to show people like we gotta change the name. Okay? We made the word nigga our own. It's our own now. Which is being said more now than ever in so many different ways than it's ever been. It was the most dumb thing I ever heard. Okay? Or how about you're blowing it out of proportion? That's not what they meant. Remember what I said about the Jewish people. They will never let you come close to doing anything anti-Semitic. They will shut you down. They don't play. But black people, that's how we talk. That's, you blowing it out of proportion. No, that movie wasn't about that. What? That movie wasn't about that. But I just sat here and showed you what propaganda is and the definition of propaganda. And I showed you how things have changed through time. Choice, you blowing it out of proportion. Or you a hater. You a hater, Choice. You mad because they got in and you didn't get in. So you mad. You just a hater. You are a hater, Choice. You a hater. You just mad because ain't nobody, you doing all this work and ain't nobody showing you no love. You ain't getting nothing going on for your career. So you hating on the next man. Why you hating on the next man? You a hater. Why? Because I have an opinion about how my culture is being represented. I have an opinion on knowing that the more you allow things to happen, you give someone an inch, eventually they'll take a mile. Things will get as bad as they get. What if you have someone from middle America who never has ever seen a black person? They never went to college. They grew up middle America. Their town, maybe 2 or 3 black people at the most, but they never met one. They get up, they go out into the world. They come to LA. Their life has changed. All they have in their mind is what they've seen on television and in the news. Okay? In the news. Black people, disproportionate, all this conversation that we hear all the time about black people this and black people that, because the media has the power to say whatever they want to say, and they can backtrack on themselves and say something else when they want to say, when it enthuses them and when it benefits them. That man becomes a police officer. How do you think he's going to respond to certain situations? Because by nature, black people, we loud by nature. We very energetic by nature. It goes back to the Eddie Murphy skit where he talks about funerals, right? How we have our funerals. Right? And that's very true. There are things that may seem stereotypical, but there is some essence of truth to it. Okay? In regards to our cultural differences. So how do you think he's going to interact? Maybe he's not built for dealing with people of color, black people or Latins, or maybe he takes everything in a different way because his response is different. I'm just saying. I know that it's all about media. I know that. Okay? I know that for a fact. All right? Hater. You hater. You hater. Why you got something bad to say about something all the time? You a hater. Okay? Make a personal, that means to you. So I'm saying this out to all of you guys. Okay? Because yes, the collective is cool. If you can get 500,000 people to agree upon the same thing, which in itself is a monumental task in this world, period. Not just in America, but in this world. 500,000 people to agree upon the same thing. That's amazing. But you have to make the difference in yourself, in your surroundings every day. Every day. You have to tell yourself that. You have to make that difference. Make a personal commitment and a promise to the culture and to yourself. So now people are a little bit more pro-black, right? Even people who are not part of the black community, they say, I want to help. I want to do something. First off, we need to stop expecting people to do for us for what we need to do for ourselves. For me, when I first moved to LA and I got into film, a lot of the people that helped me were not part of the black community. They helped me because I earned a right to be helped. Not because they felt like, well, I want to make a difference for the black community. No, they gave me jobs because of my talent. They gave me jobs because of the person that I am, personality-wise, the integrity level that I had, the talent and the drive that I had to do better. And I think that's where people really should have their mind. Yeah, it's great if we can get a lift up. That's great. What are you going to do with that lift up? Are we owed 40 acres and a mule? You're damn right we are. But sitting around waiting on that ain't going to help. So if you say I'm going to pursue a means of making things better for my culture, you have to make a promise to that culture, and you have to make a promise to yourself. You must do that, because that's what I did when I was a kid. That's what I did. When you look at the greats, Michael Jackson, Prince, all those people, they always did something to benefit the culture. Okay? Stop looking for acceptance. I think the black community, as far as when it comes to Hollywood, is we want to make a film. Sometimes we want to make a film to impress the white audience. Okay? I want white people to like it too. Just make a great film. Make an amazing film. Make a great film. You know, and granted, we don't get the same liberties that other people get. Some cats come right out of school and make a film, and they get an agent, manager, they get all kinds of giddy tools and stuff, and you watch the film and you're like, oh, that was okay. It wasn't nothing special. That person's chosen. Happens. Okay? Some of us, we got to fight. We got to keep working. You got to come from the love of it. You don't get paid. You bust your ass. You're working really hard. I don't do anything that I do to impress anybody. I just make sure that the work that I do is impressing. It's impressive. Do we understand that? Like if I work hard enough to make sure that every step that I take, make sure that I don't fall through the cracks, the work will be solid. The work will be substantial enough to where people are impressed, especially when they realize that I did it with nothing, which is a threat and scary to some people, because it's like, I had all of this, you had nothing, and you did great. That's a threat. Create your own content that tells the truth. Okay? Create your own content that tells the truth. Right? The truth. Not your truth. The truth. Because that's what we were seeing with a lot of these films. Okay? A lot of times when you watch these films, you go, that ain't real. That wouldn't really happen. The truth is being skewered. It's being misconstrued. Okay? Tell great uplifting stories that display Black Americans in a positive light, or Black people overcoming adversity. Listen, and I'm going to say this because I know there's a lot of people that have movies and stuff where people want to show like the sad part, you know, the anti-hero, you know, I want to show the that's okay. But God damn it, show some hope. show some hope in that. You know what I mean? Let people leave the theater with a little bit of hope, man. Let them leave the theater with some hope. I don't want to leave the theater feeling like how I felt with Precious. Because I guarantee you this, if it's about my community and I already know that truth and you've already expounded on that truth and even exaggerated that truth, when a white person sees it, imagine how they feel when they watch it. Imagine how they feel when they watch it. And like I said, we're not doing this for them. We're doing it for us. But if there's hope in it for us, then there'll be hope in it for them when they watch it. So then we don't look that bad, in my opinion, if there's hope, rather than being hopeless. I'm just saying. Make sure Black people are overcoming adversity. Let's tell ourselves we're going to, you know, okay, yeah, I'm you know, listen, when we can look at films and we could say, I use the example of what was that movie? That sorry guys, losing my train of thought real quick. This here, Set It Off. Okay? Set It Off. At the end of Set It Off, right? A lot of those women met their demise, if you know the story. But one got away. I mean, and it was the one that made the most sense throughout the whole film. So you feel a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, you see the sacrifices that some of them make for each other, the women, but at the end, there's one that got away with the loot. And you're like, yo, okay. Like, you don't feel so bad. She got away. Even though she was part of something that was wrong, it still makes you feel a certain kind of way. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying, you know. Okay, listen, let's keep moving. Support indie filmmakers in word and in deed. Okay? Support indie filmmakers in word and in deed. Financially. So that means a lot of times people put out Indiegogo, they put out, all the different crowdfunding, Kickstarter, all right, all the different crowdfunding platforms, Patreon, all the different ones. And people are like, oh, that's great. I see you doing it. I see you doing it. You know, I support you. But they don't support financially. If I see something that I believe in, I tend to support. And anybody that's on this live chat knows that about me. I tend to support because I understand the struggle of getting something of substance made. If it's garbage, I'm not going to support it. Trust that. I don't care how many times you send it to me. If I know it's something that makes black people look bad, it's not passing me. It's not passing me. There's people out there that'll support it, but I'm not doing it. Okay? So that's just something for people to know. Okay? Support indie filmmakers, black indie filmmakers in word and in deed financially. Support them. All right? Okay, so this one is a big one. Don't support a film just because it's a black film. Now, I've gotten many conversations on Facebook and groups and stuff where people were like, we need to support this film. If we don't, they're not going to make no more. That's not the essence of how Hollywood works. If a film bombs, they make another one because it's all about making money. The business model of making money is you keep going until you find something that you can make money off of. You're going to be in the red sometimes, but your job is to work to be in the black. And the reason why they're able to make these horrible films that they've been making is because people go out and support them. They go out and they support them. A lot of people believe if it's black, I'm going to support it. Child, I'm going to watch this because you know black men ain't shit anyway. I'm going to watch it. That's right, girl. Tell him. That's right, girl. You tell him. He ain't shit. Black men ain't shit. Okay? You see that a lot in film. You know, in this one here, that black guy turns him in, and at the end, he got that money, and I was like, wow, how do you get the money that fast? How you get all that money that fast? Like, they just died. I was like, wow. And then, of course, this one here, where he beats her to death. Beats her to death. Okay? Black man chases her, finds her, gonna kill her. Slave master kills him. And instead of her shooting the slave master who's been tormenting her all her life, she drops a shotgun, gets on a horse, and rides out into the sunset. Literally. Oh my goodness. This movie made over $60 million. And they were like, it was a success. Same company that was pushing that racist thing against Byron Allen. Same company. And people supported this thing because they don't know better. No pride in the culture. They don't know better. You know, yeah, this is free, and this is free on if you got Netflix. But when you watch it and you're not paying attention to what people saying, that if it's garbage and you still watch it anyway, you help with the viewership. It's won an Oscar. This one here. Woo! Jesus. Man. I'm sorry, y'all. So don't support a film just because it's a black film. People be like, I'm down for anything black. Oh, really? If it was about black kids getting raped, you gonna watch that too? I mean, what's the logic in that, man? It's asinine. Okay. Raise the bar. Now, that's one of the things that I tell my actors all the time, and anybody that works in any form of content with me. Raise the bar. Raise the bar. There's no excuse why you got bad lighting, bad sound, why your muzzle flashes look bad, and there's a wealth of information on YouTube. There's a wealth of information on YouTube. A wealth of it. And you can go and learn anything you need to know. You don't have to go to film school to learn. Yeah, it helps you to be in film school if you got the money to go. You get doors open to you that you probably wouldn't get if you were independent. Okay, there's a form of nepotism there that people look out for each other. Okay, there's a process. People cross the sands in that. But it's not the same as applied knowledge. Okay, picking up a camera and making a story with a cell phone or something, a great story, and doing it with amazing quality. Okay? And so we have to remember to raise the bar in everything we do. Don't just do, I just want to put something out. No, you're going to remember, okay, let's go back to this. All right? Okay? Show yourself how you wish to be seen. People receive you how you present yourself. That's really simple. That's an easy, this was taught to me by my uncle, because I didn't have a dad. My dad died 2 months before I was born. But my uncle told me, he said, people receive you how you present yourself. My Uncle Mike. He said, show yourself how you wish to be seen. That's what he said. So if you present yourself as a certain way, that's how you're going to be received. It's really hard to get people to change their thought process when you show a certain way. We've had, for the last maybe 5 or 6 years, just a certain type of narrative happening in films and stuff. And that's how people receive us. Okay? Be responsible. Remember, we set the precedence. Okay? So you have to reclaim your power. A lot of us, just to get a meeting, we'll do anything it takes. Just to get a budget, we'll do anything it takes. Yeah, they tell you, can you, I remember when I had a film and people were looking at it. They were looking at it to consider putting money behind it. And it's basically a film, it's called We Are Family, and it's a film about 5 siblings and how alcoholism has damaged the Black American community. There hasn't been a film done about it yet, okay? And when people read it, they always say, oh man, this is an Oscar caliber film. And I could care less. I just want to tell the story. That's why I wrote it, because alcoholism affected my life and many other Black people's lives that I know. It is the #1 accepted form of drug use. Alcoholism is a drug. It's horrible. And I wrote a film to help find ways to curb it. And of course it has the redemptive themes. And one of the characters was a certain way in the film, and the producers that wanted to finance it was like, well, does it have to be this character? And I'm like, well, it was in the 80s, and that character, there's 5 people and there's different types of archetypes, and I want everyone to relate with each character. And he was like, yeah, but does it have to be that? Like, it couldn't be this? And I had to explain to him, listen, why don't I do a read for you so you can understand? And once we did the script reading, he understood it. And I thought that was like, wow, that's mind-blowing that he read the script, and because of how he sees things, he saw it in that light. But once he saw someone read it, then he understood it. So a lot of you guys here on the Be Responsible, We Set the Precedence, a lot of you guys are allowing others to set the precedence. When they tell you, what was that? Fruitvale Station. Okay? I knew when I saw him, when I saw Michael B. Jordan, go up to the pit bull, I said somebody white told him to write, Ryan Coogler to write that in there. Because that's not real. Ain't too many Black people on the street, if they see a stray pit bull, going to walk up to it and be like, what I'm saying? Like, it was so, and then the dog got hit. and it died, and he saw that, and it was interjected, and it made no sense, but it was the save the cat moment. And I'm in the theater supporting the film, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, this is a save the cat moment. It's not believable. Somebody white told him to write that in because of what had been going on during that time. Was Michael Vick had got accused of dogfighting with pit bulls. So it couldn't have been a Doberman. It couldn't have been a German Shepherd. It couldn't have been anything else. It had to be a pit bull. And so that's what I mean by be responsible. We set the precedence. When you have scripts and people are talking about changing certain things to fit their narrative rather than the truest narrative, you got to stand your ground. But a lot of people will not stand their ground because the thing is they're afraid to lose the opportunity. So that goes into what I'm saying next. It starts on the page. It starts on the page. If you want to make a difference, if you want to change the narrative, the stories you tell is what we will see. Especially if you remember we set the precedent and you're responsible. That goes into the next one. Tell the story and stop pushing the agendas. Now, this becomes a thing of people when you hear them talk about directing and stuff, and they say, I want to tell my story. Because in filmmaking, we are taught, write what you know and direct what you want people to see. So you write what you know and you direct what you want people to see. So if my perception of the story is a one-way thought process. I can't see, like, I would never direct a film about a white kid in Iowa. I have no idea what that story is like. I have no idea what that is. And I would be arrogant to think that I could just direct anything. Okay? Because I don't understand that culture. Okay? So we have an issue of appropriation in the black community where people feel like they can just tell our story. And with that being said, what happens is things will get left out, things will be misconstrued, things will be told incorrectly. And that narrative ends up on the screen. And people who watch that narrative believe that because people believe what they see. People believe what they see. And remember, if I'm a person that's going to put propaganda through my visuals, I know what I'm doing to get the response and the thought process that I want people to have. It's that simple. Okay? It's that simple. So, here we say, tell the story and stop pushing the agendas. And that's what you're seeing in a lot of these films. Okay, let's go back to them. All right? So that way we can know how to recognize it. All of these films had an agenda. Every last one of them. Do the research. Pay attention. Open up your sensitivity to these things. They all had an agenda. And in the past 10 years, it's been like that with a lot of these films. It's been like that. And a lot of times the filmmakers are the ones pushing the agenda alongside with people who are producers or investors or the studios. Because, like I said, look at where we're at. How did we come from this, which maybe some of them had an agenda, very, very slight, very undertone, from this to these. Got to ask yourself that. How did that happen? Okay? If you're honest with yourself, then you could be honest with this whole thing. And vice versa. Create great allies. All right? I have a great ally in Bradford Parks, in Kelly Breslin. People who believe in my talent. Not just the fact that, hey, I'm a black man, I want to give you, you're a black man, I want to give you a chance. They believe in my talent. They believe in my creative thought process, in the the way that I'm able to tell a story, the way that I'm able to present it. That is a true ally, okay? I don't want people giving me stuff just because I'm black and they feel like, oh, you black here, just to keep you quiet. I don't want them doing that with my culture. I want them to recognize that we have talented people. We don't need affirmative action. I never believed in that. If my film work isn't as good as the next man, I gotta work hard. I gotta take it back upon myself to be just as good, if not better. I have to raise the bar. I know I can sleep at night if I put my work in. Okay? Can't do anything about racist people. Racist people are who they are, and it's been a long time for that. I just showed you how Hollywood got to be what it got to be. Racist people are who they are, and the buildup of who they were. My mom, I grew up in the projects, and my mom did everything to instill culture in us, to introduce us to different things. If we were closed-minded about it, she got in our ass about it. She made me listen to all kinds of music, to watch all kinds of movies. One of her favorite movies in the mid '80s was Bridesheads Revisited. I'd go home and she'd be sitting there watching that. I'm like, why are you watching this? She's like, it's good. You need to sit down and watch it, just to instill some form of culture, because all I knew was the projects. I didn't know anything else. When I went out into the world and I went to Romania for a film that the Hillenbrand brothers brought me out on, it was one of my first major gigs. I made more money doing that gig than anything I've ever done in my life. And I spent a month in Romania. And I was walking, the first 2 weeks I was there, I was sick because I had, some kind of reaction to the water. And I was sick, and I was walking down the street. I had on some Timbs, and I had on a bomber jacket. I'm walking down a little Scully, and I'm walking down the street, and I see a little group of Romanians standing there. Teenagers. And I'm from the city, so I'm always like, oh man, this is gonna be a problem. I'm in an unknown, location. I don't know this area. If these people attack me, I gotta hurt them. And I saw the guy, one of the young guys, he's talking, and he stopped and he looks at me. And I'm like, oh man. And as I get closer, I realize they're not a threat, but he throws his arms up and he says, nigga, yo, my nigga, what's up, man? And I was like, wow, wow. Blew my mind. I was like, wow, okay. Hey, what's going on? Hey, man, take me back to LA with you, man. He saw a black man. And his perception of what he saw as a black man, because when I went back to the hotel room, I remembered at that time when he called me that word, that there was 7 stations, maybe 9. That their whole culture had action. One was an action-oriented station that played only action films and redubbed them in Romanian. Comedy, romantic, a local station, okay, and then MTV, and then the music that was playing at that time when I was in Romania was nothing but hip hop, mostly, as a representative of black people. And they played hip hop music with no censorship. So all the words that they say are words that, the rappers originally did. It's uncensored. So we had all those years of rappers out there doing what they wanted to do, the Lester Crowley mindset. And now people are mad because people see them a certain way and say the word with impunity. When you watch these world star hip hop videos, you got Asian and Latin guys calling each other nigga, or white people, what's up, my nigga? Fuck you, nigga. And you're like upset. How they get to say that word? Well, they pretty much appropriated and brought the word. You can't put something in someone's face and tell them don't mess with it. You don't have the right to that. After they done spent $12.99 on a CD, and they done spent maybe well over $5,000 to $20,000 of their money into your merchandise and who you are as an artist, and then you say, oh, you don't have the right to say that though. I'm just saying. There's a responsibility that we have to have. And you can't, and you know what? And you can't say, oh, well, it ain't my job to raise nobody. If all that kid sees and believes in is you have more power than their parents. They are going to dress like you. They are going to act like you. They are going to speak like you. They're going to think like you. I'm just saying. I mean, I ain't. Somebody said I'm preaching, but I don't think so. If I was preaching, then people would be hearing me. Okay, almost done here. Those are my allies, people who believe in me and what I believe in and what I do and how I do it. Those are great allies. Those are the people you want. Okay? White people need to stop being guilted. Stop guilting them. They don't owe anybody anything, a lot of these people. Their ancestors did the damage. So unless you can get the government to give us 40 acres and a mule, let's go. Otherwise, we got to create our own. Okay, last one. Overcome nepotism and narcissism by spreading opportunities through the community. Okay? Overcome nepotism and narcissism. Let me start with nepotism first. Nepotism is favoritism. That goes back up to the other person. I got mine, you get yours. There's maybe 2 or 3 people that think that same way. They work well with each other. Because then they look at everybody else and they be like, they don't deserve to be over here. We worked hard to get where we got. Forgetting that somebody gave them an opportunity. Forgetting that they did whatever it took to get where they got. And maybe this person doesn't want to have to do what they did to get where they got. Forgetting that they more than likely sold out their culture and this person won't. So it's easier to have nepotism with people that think the same way you do rather than somebody that doesn't. Narcissism is a person, the narcissism is you're dealing with a person who they want to be on the top by themselves. They really feel like that's how it works for them. They could care less about creating a black infrastructure when it comes to, making films. They're worried about people giving them competition. It's all about them. They want to be seen, as number one. They got they're gods, Why would you be around? They don't want you around. Okay, so we have to overcome nepotism and narcissism. And that starts with, again, going back to what I said, making a personal commitment and a promise to the culture and to yourself. It's simple. It's not hard. So we overcome nepotism and narcissism by spreading opportunities through the community. Just like a lot of you guys were out there, you went out there, you were marching, you were protesting. The silent protest is the person that's making things happen. They don't need to get a article and deadline to say, hey, I gave all this money. They don't need to have a foundation. They look and see that there's another brother, someone that's working really hard, or a sister that's working really hard, and they say, listen, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Okay? I've been watching you. I'm going to give you an opportunity. All right? I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm going to help you build. So now, not only have I built, you've built. And then not only have I built and you built, we helped her to build. And not only did I build and you build and we helped her to build, she helped them to build. That is how you create an infrastructure. Right? Let's go back to it. How did D.W. Griffith, they got together. Him, Douglas Fairbanks, they got together and they created United Artists for the protection of their interests. Now, granted, they didn't have to say, well, we're doing this for white supremacy. Maybe DW did. But that wasn't what their statement was. Their statement was, as actors, we need to protect ourselves. So that's when the collective can work. Do we understand that? All right. So at this time, I just want to open up for any questions that anybody may have or any statements. The chat room is live. It is open. Let's get to work on that. Let's do it. Okay, let's do it. Anybody got anything they want to mention? I know I covered a lot of stuff. But definitely the chat is live. And I'm definitely interested in hearing what everybody has to say. I know I've been getting a lot of texts. You know, um, I had wanted to maybe do it on Instagram so I could talk to people one by one, but then I wouldn't be able to show the slides the way I did. So, you know, no questions. I'm looking into the chat. Is anybody still there? I know it was a lot. This will be saved and reposted for a later date. No? Okay. All right. Well, I guess what I need to do, what historic stories would you like to see that were during the slavery civil rights times? Oh, that's a good question. Actually, and that's from Brandon Moulton. Actually, there are a couple of stories. One in particular, honestly, I would have, had they wanted to go the superhero route, then instead of doing the full biography of Harriet Tubman, they should have done the part where when she worked for the when she worked for the Yanks and helped people during that time. They should have told I always found in history when I studied history, I always found that very interesting that she was like a super agent, you know what I mean, and dressing up and going around and doing all this stuff and fighting, saying, against the Confederates. Like, I always found that fascinating, you know what I'm saying? That's like a modern day, female 007 story. To add to that though, Brandon, I'm burnt out on slavery stuff. I'm burnt out. Like, I just, and primarily because of, like I said, what they did was how they did it, like, yeah, it is important to tell those stories, but at this point, show me something about the Nubian kings. Show me something about Musa Mansa. Show me something that, Black Panther was such a breath of fresh air. It was a breath of fresh air, man. I ain't gonna lie. So, honestly, other than seeing Harriet Tubman in that light, there's nothing I really want to see at this point when it comes to that era, honestly. Anybody else? I think we're digesting all of this info. Yeah, Lisa, it's a lot. A lot of it I knew. I was very fortunate to be exposed to a lot of stuff, especially the Step It and Fetch It. You had Amos and Andy. You had a lot of stuff that man, I mean, when you look at the okay, so what's happening now? Like, we're going with the wind and stuff like that. People are doing these things where they're taking these movies away. That's wrong. Let them stay. Remind us of how it was so we never go back to that. Because there's always a means of going back to that. There's a lot of people who still feel a certain way. And if you educate yourself, then you understand how we got to this point. What happened to Floyd, Douglas, that's been happening. It's just the reason why everybody went a certain way about it was because they watched a man die right in front of them. Like, that's psychological trauma. I mean, it don't get any worse than that. With Rodney King, he lived. They were beating the hell out of him. He lived. But with Floyd, we are all watching this man have a knee on his neck, and there's nothing that anybody can you imagine. The people that were there, I feel bad for them because they're going to need some serious therapy. They were there and couldn't do anything. We're watching it, and we already know that he died. So, but we're seeing a man die right in front of us. Psychological trauma. Taking it in. I feel you. I'd rather see more films prior to The Great Passage. Yes, Lisa, absolutely. That's what I agree with. I definitely agree with that. I'm so burnt out on slavery. I'm burnt out on it because, especially if you're going to always show it as the one thing about Roots, right? Whether people believe in the story was, a lot of people believe that Alex Haley had purge it, not purge it. When you steal an idea or for someone else their book, it had a happy ending. You know, they made it through all of that, and they got in that wagon, and it was when they came back with the sequel that wasn't necessary. But they through all the trauma and adversity and stuff that struggled that they went, Chicken George came back and got his family, man. And, you know, I don't know. Can you give another definition of a sellout? I would like to hear. Yeah, you know, listen, man, a sellout is a person willing to do whatever it takes to get where they need to be. And so, like I said, a cultural sellout is a person that doesn't take their culture in mind. Now, listen, other cultures don't have to deal with it like us, because black people are stigmatized more than any other culture on this planet. We are. Okay, I'm not saying there's not racism against Chinese or, you know, Japanese or, you know, Native Americans or Latinos or, you know, everybody has some form of racism. But because we dealt with chattel slavery, and that's what people have to understand, that's what makes the difference. So stuff like slave play shouldn't be made, because now you're mocking something that was in someone's family that was terrible. Like, what? So you willing to make a mockery of that? I didn't like Jojo Rabbit because it was a mockery of World War II and dealing with Hitler. And those things are not funny to me. A lot of people died. You know? Millions of people died because of a man who thought he was right in his process. I can't be cool with that. I'm very sensitive to that stuff. You know, one of my favorite people is Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee dealt with tremendous racism in Hollywood. The way they made Asians look back then. If you get to watch his Be Water documentary, 30 for 30, ESPN, to me, it's the best documentary they've ever done on him. Like, I've seen pretty much every documentary, but this one was different because they focused more on his struggle and how he had to deal with Hollywood. And they were saying that to black people need to be more like Asians because Asians were docile. They were more docile, they were more easygoing, and they were more subservient. Like, what? So Bruce Lee came on the scene and wrecked shop. You know, he was a cultural icon. So then to see Once Upon a Time, to see Quentin Tarantino make a mockery of that, I was flabbergasted. I was hurt. To make Bruce Lee, you know, so that's what revisionism does. People don't realize the danger of that. It's very dangerous. And that's why China blocked that film. They were like, you're not going to do that to our hero. Because, yeah, to America, we were like, oh, he was the first Asian man that we saw do what he did on film as big as he did it. But to Chinese people, there were smaller films that he did prior that opened the floodgates for a sense of pride for them. So yeah, sellouts, man, you know, they're not going to be in my projects. So, you know, people have been trained to do so. Absolutely. Yeah, Lisa, you're right. People have been trained to do so. I agree. You know. Well, guys, anyway, listen, we have 5 minutes left. And so if you have anything else you want to ask, Brandon Moten, do you think the masses are ready to see black actors in fantasy films such as Lord of the Rings or one of my personal favorites, Legend from the 80s, that Tom Cruise movie? Yeah, you know, Brandon, they're putting them in. It's, you know, sometimes I see like, oh, wow, you know, it kind of throws me off to see a Black Knight. You know what I'm saying? It's like, even though there were Black Knights during that time, like when you start really getting deep into history, you understand that black people were all over the world. There was always some black, you know, there were black people in Ireland, there were black people in Germany, there were black people everywhere. So to watch a fantasy film and to see a black elf, I mean, there've been movies that have done that, but you know, I don't want to see my culture interjected and forced into something. You know, it's like I don't want to see a black Superman. You know, Superman is what he is to me. I don't want to see a black Batman. I want to see new heroes that are black. Okay? And if anything, get it right with fucking Storm. You know what I'm saying? Show her as a dark-skinned African for once. You see? So I think the work needs to be done on that. That's why I did Black Lightning. You see? That was my purpose for doing it. So there were so many other stories that could be told. African heroes and, you know, I mean, fantasy, there's a lot of fantasy in you know, a lot of these stories that the black Africans and black, you know, people can do. You know, let's make Static Shock. Static. Let's make him. Right. Let's do it right, though. We should have blocked a few movies here for what they have done to the view of black Americans. I agree, Delon. You know, they should be, you know, where they're taking these movies like Gone to Win and blocking those movies and stuff like that and cutting movies and not showing what led to this to bypass the responsibility, because that's really what it is. There are black films that have been made in the past 5 to 10 years that have done more damage. We got to show them. Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely dying to be in a fantasy film. Yeah, you know, write it. You know, I mean, you know, make a sci-fi film or a fantasy film on a planet where it's normal to see people of color a certain way. See black people a certain way. It starts with the story. Any ideas on who should play Storm? Plenty of ideas. There's a lot of chocolate to dark-skinned women that could play effortlessly. And not that I'm being biased that it has to be a dark-skinned woman. It's just that that's the depiction that I'd love to see. Because we've had the light-skinned depiction of a, you know, African woman over and over and over again. Let's see the other. You know, colorism is a big issue in Hollywood. They do it on purpose. I agree with everything you stated today with one exception. I disagree with the concept that projects that tell our stories are wrong if it doesn't have a happy ending. Oh yeah, no. Let me piggyback on that, Pichanda. It's not so much just about a happy ending. It's not just about a happy ending. It's about the difference between a happy ending and a hopeless ending. That's my point. That's why I was showing those two contrasts. You see, a happy ending can have different levels of happiness, contentment, right? It doesn't mean that the person lived and you know, and they lived happily ever after. No, it's just that they made it through. Okay, they made it through to the end. So that's not always happy. It's just a thing of they could be content that they overcame, rather than they die all the time or there was no resolution in regards to their mom that knew that they were being raped. Whereas when you look at something like How to Get Away with Murder, the whole series, there's a resolution between the Cicely Tyson character and the Annalise character. Okay? The Cicely Tyson character is the mother of Annalise, and they have a resolution earlier in the seasons. And so by the time you get to the end of the season, their relationship is better. Okay? It's better and it's closed. It's a chapter. See, when you permeate a certain type of message to people and say that black people are unforgiving, and then in the media saying that they must forgive, it's a conflicting conversation. You see? If all you're showing is that black people have hopelessness, then they don't think that we're capable of forgiveness or healing. So there's no healing. So no, it's not about having just a happy ending. It's about resolution and healing. Okay? Changing narratives, absolutely, yeah. I agree with what you, yeah, okay. I believe it's important to approach those hard narratives to better understand some of our struggles. Agreed. That's totally agreed. I'm not disagreeing at all. And hopefully you're seeing what I'm saying now, that it's not just about it being happy. Like I used the point of you know, gosh, why can't I never remember that movie? Where she, all her friends died. You know, all her friends died, but at the end, she she gets on a train and she goes, set it off. Like, set it off. She gets on a train and then she goes away. She's the only one out of all her friends. They all die. You know what I'm saying? Or let's look at Jason's lyric, right? Jason's lyric, right? I mean, he loses his brother and all this other stuff happens and she gets shot. But they end up making a change in their life. You can look at any of these movies during this time. 5 Heartbeats, right? 5 Heartbeats. They have all this stuff happen. This, Eddie Kane, all this stuff happens and everything. And they stop being families and they stop being friends. And then at the end, they make a resolution. It's healing. They forgive each other at the party. And they're able, even though somebody's died off, they're able to move on to a new aspect in their life. That's what I'm saying, okay? Yes, Delon, thank you. Set it off. Why do you think there aren't that many black people in Star Wars films? You know what? That's a very good question. And listen, John Boyega afterwards came out and pretty much said that, all the promises that made to him, they kind of reneged on him. I think because originally they were alluding to, even in the first film, that John Boyega would be a Jedi. Okay? He was a stormtrooper, but they were leaning because, all the advertisements had him holding a lightsaber. All right? Because you never really saw anybody but like Princess Leia use a lightsaber that wasn't a Jedi in the previous films. Right? If I'm correct. So John Boyega, he was really upset because a lot of the promises they made to him, they didn't keep. So he ended up becoming a throwaway character. And so, I would have to do the work to find out, but I honestly don't know. I think they wanted to push more of the feminine energy in the film, obviously, which they did. So everyone else took a back seat. That was the agenda. Kathleen Kennedy said that she would make Star Wars, the Force is female. So I just think maybe they don't know what to do with them. Whereas you look at something like The Mandalorian, where you have people with different progressive thinking, they're able to incorporate black people in their stuff, and it's normal. It doesn't feel forced. You know what I mean? Yeah, Greyhound bus. So yeah, she was leaving on a Greyhound bus. Yeah. Finally got home, catching all of this. All I know is I want to see black people shown in their power. That's right. Without any trade-offs that push some agenda. I agree. They killed Finn. They flipped and flopped him around. Facepalm. Yeah, he was very upset with it. And he's been very vocal about it as well. Probably because they rely on China for profit. And China ain't really messing with black people like that. Yeah, they talked about that just recently too, about the poster. How Star Wars and Disney said it. He's a hero to them and that they firmly support him after he did his speech in the UK. And people were bringing out the fact, well, where were you guys when he needed you on the poster debacle in China? He was way in the back, almost minuscule. They were like, where were you at when he needed you in China? So listen, I mean, it is what it is. I think that's what happens with a lot of these films. By the time it hits the screen, except for independents mostly. Yeah, it is, Lisa. You got a lot of people who have their sense of how it should be. They tell their story. They don't tell the story. And usually, if the person is not good at telling their story, it doesn't resonate with us. But of course they do now. Yeah, agreed. All right, guys. So unless we got time for one more, I'll do one more question before I leave. Because my voice has been hit or miss most of the day. So giving him a worthy role. He's not going to have, I don't think John Boyega, especially now after this, he's not going to have a great role until somebody writes it for him. I think if I was his manager, I'd be like, yo, stay away from all of this popular stuff. And let's do an independent film where you can really show your range. Because he is a tremendous actor. He's an amazing actor. Outside of Black Panther. Okay, this is the last question, guys. Outside of... Okay, well, wait a minute. I got 2 popped in. These are the last 2. Outside of Black Panther, do you think a large scale of black people support another black superhero movie? Yeah, they will. They want it. And the reason why Black Panther was so large and huge was because we had never seen a character like that on the big screen. So people stepped out to represent. It made them feel a certain way. I remember when I first saw the film, I couldn't talk enough about it. Because, like I said, going back to what I was telling Pachanda, it's not, at the end, you know, there's a lot of bad things that happen. It's not so much that it's a happy ending. It just ends on the promise. And I think that, you know, all Marvel films had to end that way. But it was great to see Black Panther, you know, all right, boom, we're going to do something to make a difference. You know, I mean, isn't that what we all want? You know, there's nothing wrong with feeling bad. But Precious, oh my God, you know, no, you know. So, yeah, absolutely. Listen, if they start pushing these agendas that I'm hearing they're going to push, you know, I don't think there'll ever be another Black Panther, in a sense, like how big that was. Nah, not going to happen. Because they're not thinking about true entertainment. It's all agendas. Do you think shows like that are a part of the problem as well? Couldn't get through that BS. Which show, Tony, are you talking about? My next project is probably going to be A New Life and a couple of other films that I'm working on with different people. American Ronin with James and Black. A New Life with Chris Rouse and some of the Breaking Through actors. And hopefully Henry's Courage. If I'm able to get the resources I need to get it done. Okay. All right. I'm waiting on Tony. Tony, you had a question. Tony Bartel. Do you think shows like that? Oh, Black as. Oh, okay. Absolutely. Yes. That show, because if you look at that show and you compare it to another show in the 90s where the dad was a prominent figure in the family, this show is totally, you know, to say, oh, this is true to life. There may be a family out there like that. I don't know how many families are black and that affluent that people care to pay attention to, but my goodness, all that, how you cuss your family out and talk about your wife and, you know, that you know, he's a nihilist. So it's like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would you do that? Of course, because it caters to the carnality of who we are as people. You know, look at my watch, look at my house, look at my clothes, look at my car, but I'm black. How does that all work together? I don't get that. You know what I'm saying? You know, that you know, like people say, black is not a, you know, it's not a monolith. You know, there's a lot of sides to who we are. Where's the love in the family? There's people out there that have love for their families, and or they don't have money, or they do have money and they love each other. I've seen it. Okay. Also, Mom says, thank you so much, Choice. You're so very welcome, Joan. I love you. Looking forward to your show written by Pachanda, which is next Wednesday at 8 p.m. I have it on the calendar. So, Pachanda DeBose, her show featuring Joan Moten. Looking forward to a one-woman show streaming on Facebook, 8 p.m. Next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Looking forward to that. Thank you for this meeting. Necessary knowledge to move forward. I agree. That's what I felt that I could do. Tell her I said hi, James. Okay. Go higher. All right, guys. Listen, I love you. God bless you all. Let's change the narrative. Like I said, this will be reposted for people to see. My apologies on all of the technical difficulties in the beginning, but hopefully everyone has learned something and you've made the pledge to yourself and to your community to make the difference, because I've been doing it all this time and I'm not stopping. All right. I love you all. God bless you. Take care.